So which are the three records that matter to you the most concerning your development as a person and as a musician?
That's it. Yeah.
And let's start with the first one, and then you can tell why you choose that one.
Well, I think an important record for me was Led Zeppelin 2, their second record, because when I was a kid growing up, my parents had that record. My parents had the best rock and roll record collection of anybody I ever met. But I remember loving that record when I was a kid, and then when I started playing guitar, that record still had a huge influence on me as a guitar player. So that was an important record for me.
And if you listen to the record nowadays, what does it feel like for you? Is it like more remembering these old days, or is it giving you another like input today?
It gives me sort of input today. It's a record that stands the test of time. So it doesn't so much remind me of the old days. It's just it's still a valid record today, and it reminds me of how rock and roll became a certain kind of like hard rock, you know, like Whole Lotta Love, and it became very sexy, you know. A lot of that record is very sort of it's almost erotic, you know, the kind of tempo and groove that is going on that record.
And as you started playing guitar, was it like you choose a lot of songs from the Led Zeppelin to try them as well?
I still play the Led Zeppelin songs off that record. Bring It On Home, Whole Lotta Love, Moby Dick, not Moby Dick, Livin' Lovin' Maid, you know. So those are all just still like, you know, really important riffs for me, you know, because it had a lot to do with what that influenced me as a guitar player.
Okay, let's go to the second one.
Okay. Now, the next one that was really important for me was Aerosmith Rocks. And that record came at a time when I was about 14 years old. And I discovered that record at this girl's house. And I'd gone over there to sort of basically to get in bed, get this girl in bed, and we had a lot of records, and we smoked some pot and whatnot, and had the candles lit, and then she put the Aerosmith Rocks record on, and I completely focused on that record for the next hour. I played it over and over again, and forgot about her, and sort of blew that whole date. But that record sort of spoke to me because there was a certain attitude on that record, and a certain kind of bluesy swagger, and it was really loud, you know, like real aggressive record, and it spoke to me as a teenager, and that's really what sort of set me off on the path of picking up the guitar and sort of the direction that I went.
You talked about a certain attitude. Could you describe it a little bit more?
Well, it's just a sort of a sleazy, fuck you, raunchy attitude, which just I related to, you know, as a kid, and it was very sloppy. And you know, when I say aggressive, it was like, you know, there was it was very bluesy, but there was a lot of screaming, you know, a lot of intensity in it, and it just really was the record that motivated me.
Okay, and the third one?
And the third one's sort of hard because there's so many important records for me, but I think probably the Who's Next was the next real important record for me, just because. I always loved The Who anyway, all the way up until that record. That record really sort of had a style to it that had a big influence on songwriting for me and my sort of approach to rhythm guitar. It's just an overall one of the best rock records ever.
When did you hear that the first time? Can you remember that?
It was my parents had it. It was a record that my parents had. So I don't remember exactly where I first heard it at home, you know? And I mean, at that point, when I first heard it, I didn't know I was going to be a musician. I had no idea. But then later on in life, I sort of rediscovered that record, and it really had a lot to say, you know, that influenced me as a musician, and it also influenced sort of my sort of rock and roll awareness and attitude, you know?
I just bought this album myself like only 1 year ago, and I was real like I never realized before what's on the cover.
Oh, he's
like,
peeing on the. It's a great cover. It's in the title, you know.